Okay, so the next story we have here is about Bernie Sanders. And apparently the Vermont senator and the 2016, the potential 2020 frontrunner, which is definitely something that people have been expecting him to be. That's something that might come to fruition. And there's an article here from Politico which describes the meetings apparently that he has had with his advisors and some people in his team of his political team of people who obviously gave him advice on what to do. And so this is an article from Politico. The title is Bernie Sanders summons team to discuss 2020. And the subheadline says, although the Vermont senator hasn't made a decision, sources say he wants to be ready if he throws his hat in the ring. So that's a big amount. That's big news for Bernie Sanders and many people that are his supporters, including myself. I am definitely not surprised by something like this, but I'm definitely glad to see it. So let's just go through the article here. It says, Bernie Sanders convened his top political advisors in Washington on Saturday for a planning meeting that included a decision of the feasibility and shape of a possible 2020 presidential campaign. Half a dozen senior Democrats familiar with the gathering confirmed to Politico. The top-line message the Vermont senator received from the operatives gathered during the government shutdown was a more formal version of the one they've been giving him regularly for months. You would be one of the front-runners for the Democratic nomination, and if you want to run, it's time to start seriously planning accordingly. The Democratic Socialists' response to the series of presentations, according to multiple Democrats, I haven't yet made a decision about 2020, but I still think beating Donald Trump is the most important thing for this country, and I want to be ready if I do decide to run. Sanders regularly speaks with a close group of advisors and periodically brings top allies in to discuss his political maneuvers. But Saturday's get-together included planning for the rest of 2018, as well as a specifically slated 2020 component, said Democrats familiar with the session, which was scheduled for the one-year anniversary of Trump's inauguration. Part of the discussion included gaming out how the rest of the field might look, since 2016's landscape, effectively pitting Sanders directly against Hillary Clinton, was far more straightforward than the expected 2020 free-for-all. So it's clear he's getting a lot of, he's definitely planning things much more carefully. And he is trying to be a little bit more, I guess a little bit more prepared for what's going to come. Now we're looking at about roughly 2 years from now. Well, obviously 1, 2, 3. No, it's about 2.5 years, obviously, because it's 2020 in November. But obviously, you have a primary and stuff, so you got to go through the primary process. So that starts obviously in 2019, and then obviously in 2020 through halfway about 2020 is when they decide who the nominee is. But yeah, I mean, I think the thing with Bernie is that when he got his, put his name into the presidential primary for the Democrats, first of all, nobody knew who he was. So, I don't know how, I would say 80% of the country really didn't know who he was. I knew who he was. I was following Bernie Sanders pretty much ever since 2000, I would say before 2010, at least. I would always watch him on different shows, and he would appear on MSNBC a lot, and he even appears a lot on MSNBC now. But he would appear on a lot of programs back then, not so much on CNN. He more on the, liberal type channel, because there wasn't a lot of channels that were liberal. That never has been. But MSNBC, you could say back then, was definitely much more liberal. And he would appear there, and I remember seeing him on with, people like Keith Olbermann and Rachel Maddow and stuff like that. So, yeah, certainly was. So, looking back on my political my political history of, you know, everything that was happening, you know, back before Bernie really got big. I can remember when he wasn't that big, but he would still appear on a lot of shows, you know, giving his opinion and stuff. So it's definitely obvious that they want to make sure that he's much more prepared coming into this next campaign, because if he's not, then they're going to have the same issues as 2016, where again, nobody knew who he was. He didn't have a lot of name recognition. Democrats didn't even really want him running as a Democrat, which was very troublesome. So he had to go through a lot of the process of getting Democrats to accept and think he's not some sort of, like, you know, double agent or something, which, I mean, that's the reason why they treated him so shitty and basically rigged the primary against him, as Donna Brazile exposed, and as many people were saying for so long. But that's something I talked about on one of my, I think it was my first episode, and first or second episode. But yeah, so it's, you know, Bernie is definitely trying to tread these waters very carefully, make sure if he's making the decision, it's, you know, it's much more calculated, much more prepared. But I would say it's probably about 90% likely that he's running, I would say. Because when you come out with stuff like this, like, they don't, like, when they talk about these things in these articles, this stuff doesn't just come out like randomly. This shit is leaked. They leak these things so that they make sure the different outlets, in this case political, I don't know, whoever you want to talk, New York Times and Washington Post, they want to make sure all these different outlets get the idea of what this person is doing, you know, what this politician is doing. And politicians know when they don't want something to come out, they don't let it come out. In this case, he wants it to come out. He wants it to be known that he's definitely considering. And whenever you're considering something like that, and you put it out there, that means you're almost positively going to do it. No doubt about it. That's my take. I mean, you know, for somebody that's been following politics for so long, you know, that's basically what I've noticed a lot of politicians doing. Let me just continue reading the rest of a little bit more of the article here. It says, multiple Democrats close to Sanders insisted that the meeting was not solely a 2020 planning session, and that the conversation was one in a series of talks that he frequently has with aides and associates in regular, less formal sessions. But they all acknowledged that this gathering was larger than the rest, and that it included a pre-planned discussion of the next presidential race. The senator, 76, has consistently refused to rule out running when asked over the past year, instead pivoting the conversation to other topics. And to be fair, what he does a lot of times when he gets asked questions like that is he gets into substance, and he gets into going after, whether it's Trump, whether it's corporate Democrats, you know, he focuses on policy substance so that he can let people know that he doesn't care about the horse race. You know, if anybody knows Bernie, people that know Bernie, they know he doesn't really give a shit about all this horse race talk. And this is what the mainstream media is obsessed with. And, you know, it's like, oh, who's going to run? You know, is it going to be this person? Is it going to be that person? How high are they in the polls? How much are they liked? What are their, what different maneuvers are they doing? You know, but this, that's why I was referring to before. This is like the fact that they're coming out with this, Bernie and his campaign or his whatever confidants are coming out with this now. It's because it's a calculated decision to do something like that, basically. So he wants to do basically what a lot of the politicians are doing, or what a lot of the politicians do, which is leak information that, oh yeah, he might be running, so that gets a little bit of chatter going on, and people start anticipating, and then they start talking, they start chirping about, oh, he's going to do this and he's going to do that, and what's his ideas and his policies and shit. Yeah, so basically that's not something Bernie does all the time. So it's definitely it's definitely out of character for him from what I know about him. But obviously the news in general is good. I don't really care whether he leaks it or doesn't leak it. Finding out about it is very good, and it confirms a lot of the things that I already knew and many other Bernie supporters knew. So the other part, the rest of the articles here says, this is a quote from Jeff Weaver, who's his Sanders' campaign manager and top political advisor. He says the senator is extremely focused on making sure the Democrats win in 2018, and that is the primary goal right now, to retake the House and retake the Senate so we can stop this horrendous Trump agenda. Sanders has remained toward the top of polls, surveying the potential Democratic field without fail after his stunning 2016 bid, and he has been working methodically to address major issues that plagued him politically last time, boning up on foreign policy and making nice with a series of party power brokers. He also visited both Iowa and New Hampshire multiple times in 2017, a traditional sign of a possible run. Okay, let's hold it there. That part of the article is a little bit concerning because anytime you are making nice, quote unquote, and look how they word it there, making nice basically means that you are going to the different members of the Democratic National Committee, Democratic Party. So that means Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Dick Durbin, unfortunately even Tom Perez, who's the head of the DNC, and then even Keith Ellison, who, to be fair, Keith Ellison is a close friend of Bernie Sanders, and Bernie supported him to be the head of the DNC when he was running against Perez, but now he's the deputy. I think he's the deputy chair. So he's definitely talking to these people. He's trying to make nice with these people. He's probably going to cocktail parties with them and shit. So it's like a lot of this is like, again, it's a calculated maneuver, but I don't like that, man. I don't know if I know that's what he has to do, because if he doesn't do that, then they're going to be trying everything to smear him and discredit him and put him down, which is exactly what they did in 2016. The fact that he didn't do this in 2016, and to be fair, the reason he probably didn't do it is because he probably didn't think he had much of a shot. He just was like, all right, you know what? And I remember Bernie explaining many times that the reason why he wants to run is because there's no other good people running. So it's like, okay, I'm gonna run, put my hat in the ring, see what happens. And he definitely didn't expect the political revolution, as they call it, to get so much momentum and get so much attention, and it did. And but my point is that he didn't make nice, as they're saying here. He didn't make nice with them in 2016. So that pissed them off. That's why a lot of times they were kind of seeing him as a double agent. They were seeing him as somebody he's not really part of the party, which that's what a lot of the people say. So he's not really part of the party, and whatever, he's an opportunist, and he's just trying to get in, he's just trying to get his foot in the door so he can, he can infiltrate our party and, God forbid, make it more progressive, because as we all know, the Democratic Party is not progressive. To be fair, it's never really been progressive, but I mean, it's not really as progressive as it, if it ever was, definitely not as progressive as it used to be. And the whole idea of making nice is to butter these Democrats up and tell them, like, no, don't worry, wink, wink, nod, nod, don't worry, I'm on your side this time. I'm not going to be I'm not going to be putting down any Democrats. I'm not going to be so-called smearing them, even though you're really just telling the truth about those Democrats. So, when he was criticizing the corporate establishment stuff, see, that's the problem. That's one thing that Bernie needs to be careful with. He doesn't need to be going out there making nice with these people. In reality, what you need to be making, and he knows it, but what he needs to really be making nice with is the people, is the voters, and he knows this. And to be fair, he does that. But at the same time, it's kind of, I don't know. It's just really like it worries me because, and unfortunately, ever since the State of the Union, which Trump's State of the Union, which Bernie also gave a response to, we're going to be discussing that later on in the show. Ever since then, he has been ratcheting up this, anti-Russia, anti-Vladimir Putin, the election was rigged, blah, blah, blah talk. And this is not talk that I agree with. I do not believe that Russia stole the election. I do not believe that Russia rigged the election, all that shit. And, I get it. He needs to do it. And, I saw somebody saying on Twitter the other day that, I'm not going to totally discredit this person, referring to Bernie, when I agree with 95 to 98% of what they believe in, and then the 2 to 5% that I don't agree, don't agree with. And I get that, but the issue of this Russia stuff is just, in my opinion, is just ridiculous. Like you're really just you're just doing what you're doing. You're only saying that because you want to please the establishment. You want to please the people that, you know, the higher ups in the party. You want to, you know, please them and let them know, like, don't worry, I'm not going to be talking about, you know, I'm sorry. I'm going to be talking about my issues, but I'm also going to be talking about the issues that please you, so that you can, you know, so that, you know, every now and then when I should be talking about Medicare for all and universal college and, you know, a $15 minimum wage, a living wage, you know, when I should be talking about these issues, no, I'm going to be talking about Russia every now and then too. So he kind of sprinkles in that anti-Russia stuff just to give them, you know, just to throw them a bone a little bit, you know, and. Yeah, I don't know. You know, the rest of this article is basically just talking about. It just talks about just talks about the different, you know, people that are, you know, Bernie Sanders spoke to, and, you know, I don't know, some meetings he had and shit. So basically, yeah, it's you know, obviously this is good news. I'm happy about it. Again, Bernie needs to be careful not to push this anti-Russia shit too much, because I understand people have this feeling of, you know, Russia being involved in the election, Russia doing this, Russia doing that. But listen, Russia rigging the election is not a big issue among progressives. And this is what Bernie has to worry about. He needs to worry about keeping his progressive base, because I talk to a lot of people out there who already believe that Bernie has pushed the anti-Russia shit too much. And this is before what I was just talking about, how I said that he was ratcheting up the rhetoric post the State of the Union. He was talking a lot about Russia, you know, in other situations too. Now, I'm sorry, that's what other people say, at least. I don't hear it that much. I mean, I just only been hearing it ever since the State of the Union, essentially, or somewhere around there. And before that, people feel that he was saying it a lot back then. I don't know. I didn't hear it all the time. But like I said, I'm hearing it a lot more now. And he needs to be careful, because progressives don't want to hear that stuff about Russia. You know, if you want to talk about how, you know, Donald Trump is involved financially in some sort of financial corruption, you know, with a lot of Russian oligarchs and stuff, that's a perfectly fine discussion to have. I don't disagree with you. But at the same time, you need to understand that you can't base your campaign. So if you're going to go and run against Trump, you can't base, a good chunk of your campaign on talking about how Russia stole the last election, you know, and they're going to be stealing it this time too, and shit like that. I mean, if you go into stuff like that, you're just going to create a lot of friction between Bernie Sanders, whatever, voters or Bernie Sanders campaign and progressives. So, you know, activists and you know, the people out there who are, you know, obviously supported him in 2016, still support him now. If all they're going to be hearing is about Russia all the time, then it's going to bug the hell out of us. And we don't want to support somebody like that. You know, we want somebody that focuses on the issues that we care about, and that focuses on Medicare for all, you know, universal college, $15 minimum wage, ending the wars, you know, fighting against, you know, the big pharmaceutical industry, big pharma and stuff, you know, like those are the main things that should be focused. The drug war, all that shit. So, I mean, here's to hoping that he does. I really hope he does. I hope he doesn't rail against Russia all the time. And if he does, that's not going to make progressives happy. I'm just telling you right now.